Hi, everybody. Welcome to our December Know-How Nordonia Google Classroom presentation. I'm Angela Wotecki, for those of you that do not know. And tonight's session, I should say, is going to focus kind of two big parts. The first part is going to be talking about some ideas that you can use with Google Classroom that are going to be applicable to, I would probably say, third grade and up at this point, but it could also be a communication tool, so we'll talk about that. And then we will then have two guest teachers. We will have Amy Zapata and Don Monroe, and they are from Lee Eaton, and they will be talking a little bit about how they're using Google Classroom. And then we'll have some question and answer if we have any of that, and then we will conclude. So I'm going to go ahead and do my screen share and share my presentation. Okay, so with Google Classroom, I previously have done a basic Google Classroom Know-How Nordonia, but I thought today I would focus a little bit more on more teaching type of things with Google Classroom. And part of the source of information for this actually came from another teacher. Her name's Alice Keeler. She's actually out of, I believe, California. And she has kind of been a pioneer with Google Classroom. She's doing some really cool things with it. She's teaching a college level course for teachers on technology integration in the classroom. So she's really kind of really done some cool things with it, and I've attended a couple of her webinars on the computer, and I have her permission to share this information with everyone. So her link is actually here, alicekeeler.com, and you can go to her website and just find some really good tips, some good ideas, and some just updates with Google. She's just great. So some benefits of using Google Classroom that I have seen personally with some teachers that are using it in our district. The consistency of the classroom routines. This is really big, especially as we get more and more Chromebooks into the classrooms. The students know that the information is going to be housed there, where it's located, and how to submit it. So it kind of keeps everything consistent across the board. It also houses all of your materials in one location. It houses all of it in your Google Drive automatically when you upload it to your classroom. So that's something too. It takes a lot of teachers have things in their X drives. A lot of teachers have things maybe in Dropbox. This way it's kind of in one location, and it's easy to kind of upload it and edit it if you need it. Students and teachers can communicate outside of the classroom. This is a really big piece, I think, because a lot of times in the evenings, teachers want to have some type of communication tool just kind of give students a heads up about something, or give a reminder, or talk about an assignment that has been submitted that maybe they didn't do so well on. So it allows for that outside of the classroom walls. Collaboration is a big piece. And I think more teachers are collaborating with using this tool, but along those lines, students are collaborating with these tools because it just lends itself to students sharing documents and that type of thing and working together. Also, blended learning and flipped classrooms are really kind of the buzzwords right now in education, and this really lends itself to making that much more easy for teachers to use. For example, a teacher can post a YouTube video now that it's unblocked and post that on their website in the Google Classroom, and then students can then watch that video and have some knowledge before they enter that classroom for that lesson based on that video. So that's an example that I've seen at the high school. Another thing is that teachers can give feedback with or without actually grading the assignment. Of course, Google Classroom has that grading tool. A lot of teachers don't really want to use that right now because it doesn't sync with Progress Book, which I totally get. But they can still give feedback on assignments by returning it to the student and giving some feedback to them without actually having to have a big long discussion or post it in Progress Book. Comments in Progress Book, a lot of teachers do that, but this is another alternative to that. So the basics, just for those of you that might have very little familiarity, if I can even say the word, you know what I mean, with Google Classroom. Basically, there's some basics that are very easy to use. As a teacher side, teachers go to classroom.google.com. They set up a class by logging into it as a teacher with their Nordonia student or their Google Apps for Education login. And then the students are then added to the class by two ways. You can either invite them, which means that they have to actually check their Nordonia email and then click on a link. And you can search for their students too within that invite link. Or the easiest way I feel is by walking students through how to get logged in, and then you give the students the code and then they enter that code in. And that's kind of nice because it's a brief, you give them a brief tutorial. This is how you log in. This is how you click on the class. This is how I have my classroom set up in Google. So that makes it nice too. This is a question that I have been asked recently is, what's the difference between an announcement and an assignment? And if you're doing an announcement, which is on this screen right here, an announcement is just going to be a short piece of information. You can upload with that different documents. So you could link videos or documents from Google or website links or that type of thing. But it's not, the students are not going to have to submit anything in return. So it's not going to be like an assignment where they actually have to submit it back to that teacher. So this can be a very simple announcement like, reminder, we have a test tomorrow, so you want to study, and here's a sample of the study guide again. You can upload that. That way they're not turning in the study guide, but at least they have access to it. So use those announcements. Another thing Google has set up is every time a teacher posts an announcement or an assignment, that student automatically gets an email in their Nordonia school's email, which I know some students are not in that habit of checking that email pretty routinely, but that might be something that you kind of get them to start doing more and more, because every time you post something, an email goes out. So that communication piece helps a little bit. Assignments. Okay, so this is a busy slide, I know, but it's really, really important. So when you have assignments, you have, of course, the assignment title up at the top. And you can provide additional information underneath that. That is completely optional. I've seen some teachers have a paragraph of text under there, which is fine. They're giving a lot of details into the assignment. You can add a due date. You can actually do the date, or you can do the date and the time. So if it's due at 2/11 on a certain day, such as when the high school gets out, then that would be the due date for that assignment. You can enter that in. If you don't, you can just enter in the day, and it would be due at 11:59 at night that day. The next thing is the actual desired attachments, which is right down here. So for this, what teachers can do is they can actually upload a document, a file, something off the computer, something within their Google Drive account. They can also upload a video via URL from YouTube. And then here they can actually link. So if there's a website you want them to go to or something that's linked, maybe a Google form or something, you can upload that link here. Then you go ahead and you set these options. And this is, I think, the beauty of Google Classroom, because you can have the students where they can actually view the file, which means that they can view it, but they can't edit it. Now, they can make a copy of that file, but they can't actually do anything with the original document. The next option is they can edit the file. This is, and we'll talk a little bit about this as an example for an activity you can have them do. But if a student edits a file, that means they're all editing the one document or the one file. So if it's a Google Doc, you have your entire class in that Google Doc, okay, which, as you can imagine, might get a little messy with that. So just be careful. And then the third one is to make a copy for each student. And this is where it's really the beauty of Google Classroom, because in one click, you have instantly shared this assignment, and every student now has their own Google Doc or their own Google Drive document that has their name as part of it, which is really, really nice. And then here is anything below that is just the previous announcement or the previous assignment. So the most updated is going to go at the top of your stream in your Google Classroom. Okay. Then the key is just click assign, and then automatically that student will be notified via their Nordonia email, and then they can work on that as they need to work on it. Here's the other thing that's kind of really nice with Google is that you can share the same assignments with multiple classes. So if you teach several English classes throughout the day, you teach maybe 3 English classes, you can actually share it with all 3 classes by dropping down that link or that little icon that's down arrow. You can go ahead and click on that, and then you can actually check which other classes you want to share that with. So that's really, really nice, especially if you have multiple classes and it's just one click. Okay, so here's an example of a way that a teacher has used Google Classroom in math. I have a lot of math teachers coming to me and saying, I like the idea, but I just don't know how it will fit in my classroom. So here's an idea that I think is really, really good. So it's the idea of having a lesson set. So what this teacher has done is had an assignment, and she numbers her assignments. So that's why it's 007. But it says, for this assignment, you'll want to demonstrate your understanding of mean, median, and mode. And then the teacher has uploaded some resources to help them with that concept. And she wants them to then choose one of the assignment options or choose their own, and then turn that in. So this might be a good idea depending on what level that student's at. So if they are, if they're pretty familiar, they scored really high on that last quiz or whatever, then maybe you have them do two assignments or something, or maybe you have them do level C, which might be a little bit more higher level than level A. But the way it's set up is they have a list of possibilities. And as far as I know, there is not a limit to how many things you can have under the assignment. So you can have, for example, there's a Google Doc, a Google Slide, and a Google Sheet, all uploaded into one assignment piece, which is really, really nice. And as you can see over here, the teacher has designated that every student will get a copy of this. Now the rest of these, this is a YouTube video, this is a link, and this is a link to the Kia website. So for that, this is, those are links. So I don't know exactly how that teacher would know for sure that they had done it or to check for that learning. But that's an example of how you can do a lesson set. So that's kind of an alternative. I think it's a good way to kind of enrich the lesson even and to supplement what you're already doing in the classroom. Okay, so here is another kind of example of a type of lesson set that someone has done. And I believe for this one, though, they had to do all of the components. So what the teacher had them do is they had them first watch a video on how to do a great research paper. The next thing the teacher had them do was to look at the rubric. And of course, right now, the student can only view that file. The student cannot edit that file or anything. And then the third was a link to a website that the teacher wanted them to go to. And then the last thing was actually a research project template that the teacher has created. And the students each get a copy of this template, and then the students then fill in that template. So I think this is a really good idea of a way you can house all of the information needed in one assignment. And then, of course, down here, if the teacher would click down here where it says Sample Class Period 2, then they would be able to share the same exact assignment with their other periods throughout the day. So that's a really nice idea. Okay, Google Forms and Google Classroom. This is a kind of a really cool idea that a teacher has done just for formative and summative assessments. And what's nice is the teacher can then go in and edit these as necessary, for the post-assessment if they need to do that. And if it's just multiple choice, you could use a Flubaroo type of add-on, which is on the Nordonia Tech Weebly. There's a tutorial I did on how to use Flubaroo, but it would grade actually this form for you with a few clicks, which is pretty nice. So the key to using Google Forms in Google Classroom is you want to make sure to enter the link of the form as an announcement. So a lot of teachers have tried to upload the form as an assignment for the students to take. In reality, what you're uploading is the actual form, as in when the teacher's inputting the questions, that's what they're uploading. So when you're doing Google Forms, just be aware that you want to click that send link up at the top right corner, and that's the link you want to share out as the assignment. You don't actually want to upload the form. At this time, at least, that isn't working, because it just takes the student to the actual form, and then the student would be able to basically edit that form and edit that quiz. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention because I know there was a little confusion with that a couple weeks ago. Okay, here's another idea of how to use Google Classroom, having collaborative spreadsheets. So Google Sheets, which is kind of the Excel version of that Google has, and this is kind of a really nice idea. So if all the students can edit this document, it's not going to be so messy because each student types in a cell. And that's how these sheets work, is that when a student clicks in the sheet, that block or that square belongs to that student. So if another student tries to override or type in that at that same time, it's not gonna let them do that. So each cell is basically for students. And as you can see, this is an example. A teacher has posted this sheet, what has helped you to learn. And the students were giving feedback on ways that they learn. And so if this teacher was sharing this as an assignment where every student can edit the one document or the one Google Sheet, then this is what it would look like. And the students would just click in a box or a cell and they would type in their answers. Now, yes, I will say that I know that there are students out there who might go in and they might delete what a student said. So I'm not sure how to, remedy that situation other than saying, I wouldn't make this for, a grade necessarily, because you can have that. But remember, you can go back and see the revision history of every Google document. So you would be able to kind of go through and click through the different revisions and see what has been deleted and what's been added. So, keep that in mind. But I think if it's an in-class activity where you're doing kind of an exit slip or something and it's just a real quick thing, okay, what did you learn today? Or let's share a positive that happened today, that type of thing. I think that's a good way to kind of get them collaboratively on there and not have it so crazy with the Google Docs. So Google Sheets would be the way to go. Here's another example of a collaborative spreadsheet. And you can do this you could do it however you wanted to do it, but you could have each student have a copy if you wanted to, but that might get a little cumbersome with the grading aspect of that. But you can actually create separate sheets. So as you can see down here, I have a couple different tabs, which are new sheets. And one is what I really liked about the story. One is what I did not like about the story. One tab is what I learned, and then one tab is questions. So the students can click on those tabs, and then they can enter their information in those cells. So that's another example, and I think a lot of times we forget about these tabbed sheets on the bottom, but you could have multiple different prompts down here that you have the students fill in. And again, up here, if you click where it says all changes saved in Drive, if you click on that, you'll be able to actually see the revision history of the document. Peer evaluation. So this is something that Alice Keeler had shared in one of her webinars, and I really liked the idea of it. What you can have students do is to share their documents with a partner or with other students and comment and give feedback within that document. And the other thing that Alice suggested is within the Google Classroom is to posting some type of rubric for the students to really follow as they're giving those peer evaluations. I think that would be a great activity to do for maybe a large research project or something where you really want the students to kind of hear from each other about their thoughts and that type of thing. And this is kind of one way to do it. So you would just, within the Google document, you go to Share, and then you can just enter the email or the name, since they're within the Nordonia Schools server, so they can just enter that student's name and then it will generate their email, and then you can give them that privilege to edit this document. So that is another example of how to kind of collaborate within Google Classroom. Another idea is a jigsaw activity, and this was also shared in that webinar. And this is using Google presentations. So it's like the PowerPoint of Google, which is works very much like a PowerPoint. You can even have transitions and all that good stuff. So it's a jigsaw activity. So what is this? A class is split into small groups, and then each group researches their specific topic. And it can be a fiction activity, this could be a nonfiction activity, this could be a research, this could be however you want to set it up. And then each group becomes an expert group for their topic. And then they present their knowledge to the wider class group. And so within Google Presentations, you can have each group present a couple slides, and you can set the parameters for that as you need to in one Google presentation. So you're basically having a Google presentation where anyone can edit that file. So that would be your sharing settings within the assignment. And then those students can go in and add their slides. There may be a learning curve with this because some students might want to go in and edit other student slides, but I think using that revision history and just supervising your students and guiding them through the process, I think this could be really, really good depending on how you want to utilize it. And remember, within Google Presentations, they can link videos, they can link a lot of different websites within it and really make it kind of an interactive thing. So that's an idea for Google Presentations. And again, as I said before, you can upload the rubric. For the younger grades, I would definitely suggest doing a class example and maybe having each student do a slide so they get the hang of how to add a slide and where that option is and all that. But I really think that this is a great way to kind of have a great presentation and having the students really take some ownership on that. Okay, how to turn in assignments. So as I said before, there are some assignments that you don't really want the students to generate a Google document or turn an actual document in through Google Classroom. So with Google Classroom, they added a new feature where the student can actually click mark as done, and then it will then show up as done. So this teacher had an assignment where she had the students watch a YouTube video. So she posted the YouTube link and she assigned it. And then what ended up happening is there was a little icon here and it said mark as done. And they clicked on that and then it automatically checked it off. So then as a teacher, you would still be able to see who had watched the video and who did not. So, and that's something too you might want to walk through with your students before you actually maybe give them points just to make sure that they know how to do that. The other option of turning in assignments, of course, is within Google Docs or within your Google Drive account. And within the document, up in the top right corner, you're going to see a turn in button, and all the students have to do is click on that. The other thing they can do is the students can actually have the assignment ready to turn in, and then they can actually make a comment to the teacher. And this is something that only the teacher and that student would see. So this student is asking, is it okay if I record myself going over the syllabus rather than taking the quiz? So the student is actually kind of communicating with the teacher about the assignment. And then if the teacher says, sure, that's fine, or whatever, then the student can just click turn in, and then the teacher will know that that assignment has been completed. So that's how that would look, those two ways of turning in. Okay, grading in Google Classroom. This is something too that, as I said, you don't have to do this, but I would recommend definitely when you're having assignments and you're having students turn them in to actually return the assignments by checking that student's name and returning the assignment to them. That way that student then has those editing privileges back. And the other thing that Alice Keeler had mentioned is that you can actually email the students by clicking on their name. So say we have a couple students who did not do this assignment yet. You can click on their names at the same time, click on the email link, and you can actually email those students and give them a little nudge and say, by the way, your assignment has not been done yet. So that's kind of a way to communicate with students about it. The other thing a lot of teachers have been wondering is this download button, what that does. What that's going to do is it's going to allow you to export the grades for that assignment into what's called a CSV file, which looks like an Excel type of file. And the hope with that is that gradebook programs will down the road allow you to then upload that file and it will go into your gradebook. As of right now, that's not happening with any gradebook system, but you can always print that out and you can share that with a parent or share that with a class and have a hard copy of those grades. So that's why that option is there. With Google Drive, you have now a classroom folder, which automatically pops up as soon as you enable Google Classroom. And with that, you actually have, for every assignment, you have a folder that's created. So that's really kind of another thing that's really nice about this. So each assignment is a folder, and they are shared folders. That's why you see the little figures in them. That means it's shared folders. So you're sharing it with you and the student, or you and all the students, depending on the type of assignment that you have uploaded. And you can still access these documents even if you've returned them. So keep that in mind too. Once you've returned it, it's still going to be in your drive for reference, but it's also going to be in that student's drive too. So that is kind of what it will look like. Okay, so how some teachers are using it at Nordonia. I've had some teachers tell me that they want to do some type of communication, such as office hours, perhaps, especially on snow days. So, which maybe we'll have some, maybe we won't, we don't know yet. But so maybe for an hour between 12 and 1 or 1 and 2, the students can get on Google Classroom and the teachers can get on Google Classroom, and they can, she can share out a document and they can kind of just chat with her within that document. So that's an option, or emailing back and forth also works. You can also use that editing suggestions, which is in Google Docs, as part of grading and feedback. The middle school teachers are really using that, especially for giving feedback, and that's within Google Docs. Another example is to have mass emails for your classes. So you can send an announcement out, and that's going to go to all of your students through the emails, instead of actually having to have an email bank. Absent students, you can post with the work that they missed. This is a really good thing. And also, if you maybe have a video or a screenshot or something of what you've been doing, then you can post that. And then highlighting text. And we'll have Amy and Dawn talk a little bit about this later on. But there is also a add-on that you can find within Google Docs. So you go to add-on tab and then you search for read and write, and it allows you to highlight text, which we really want our students to be prepared for the PARCC test, and they will need to know how to highlight text and as part of that test. OTES and the classroom. This is really, really important, and I think for those people who are still on the fence, whether should we use it or should we kind of wait, this is some definite OTES things. So differentiation is a big part of the OTES model and how you differentiate your classroom. So an idea that has been kind of shuffled around that I have heard of is possibly setting up different classrooms for each unit you're teaching. So for example, if you're teaching a certain concept in science, and you can have a unit, for that one concept, and then you can have the higher level concept a different Google Classroom. And you give the students the codes when they've mastered that other unit. Now, I know that there's probably a lot of work involved in building up those units, but especially for enrichment activities or that type of thing, I think this would be a really good idea. And you can only give them that code when you feel they have mastered that level, and that really shows that you're kind of really differentiating your instruction. The other thing is to give individual feedback and support for assignments. This is really good because you can have that conversation with the student. This wasn't your best work, or you know what, I really saw that you were slacking on this assignment. You can give that written feedback, and sometimes that works a lot better than having a face-to-face conversation in front of a class of 30 students. So keep that in mind too. And then the other thing is collaborate as a grade level or content area. And I see a lot of this in the buildings when I go out to the libraries, but just working as a team and coming up with different things. And that's why, with the unit ideas up at the top, you can work together on that. It's not like everyone has to do their own unit. If grade level wants to set up a unit, that type of thing, that might work. And it doesn't have to be super complicated. It can just be something that's really checking to make sure the students are fully mastering that concept. What about math? So yes, math teachers still are kind of in the dark. How do I use Google Classroom? So here are some ideas that I have thought of, and I've kind of brainstormed with some other school librarians that I know that are going Google Classroom. So GMath is an add-on for Google Docs, and I have down below is a picture of how you find it. So you go to add-ons, and then you search for GMath, and then once you click add, it will be added as an add-on to your Google Docs. And this allows you to input math expressions, create graphs, statistics, all that good math stuff. So there is an add-on for that. I've had a lot of people, especially at the high school, say, well, I can't use my symbols, or I can't use my equations. Well, you can. You just have to have that add-on. And the big thing is our students have to take these math tests online, and they have to be familiar with how to do that. And Google Classroom is a good way to get them to prepare, how to take a math test using a computer. Khan Academy or YouTube video clips is also really good to give some real-life supplemental materials for students. Why do I need to learn this? I hear that a lot about math and math concepts. So doing something like showing a video from YouTube about how ratios are really relevant in society today. That would be a good thing to use. And there's tons of stuff out there on YouTube. Khan Academy can give you step-by-step instructions on how to do things, lets you pause so you can kind of review if you need to pause and say, okay, I need to do that for myself. So that really works out. Enrichment opportunities, it's great. You can post, as I said, some type of lesson that you found on Khan Academy or some type of extended website that maybe gives them a little extra practice. Extra credit assignments. If students are on the fringe of an A and they're at a B plus and you really want to bump them up, maybe posting a couple links to some extra credit assignments and they have to print out the final page with their scores or whatever. And then lastly, it's a communication piece. If a student needs tutoring help, especially in math, they have that math anxiety a lot of times, and it helps because they can actually, within Google Classroom, communicate with that teacher and not feel so singled out. And say, what, I'm really having trouble with this concept. Can we meet? Can you give me some extra practice? That type of thing. So some suggestions for getting started as I'm wrapping up here. Start small. That's my advice. Maybe do one announcement and one assignment, maybe in a 2 or 3 week period, just to kind of make sure that you're feeling confident. If the teacher is not going to feel confident, the students will kind of be a little hesitant, is what I've seen. So as long as the teacher's confident in what they're posting and how it's going to get returned, and the students know the teacher's there to help, then it's smooth sailing. Let the parents know that you're trying it. I think telling parents how you're staying innovative and how you're trying this thing and it's going to allow your students to upload assignments easily and how you're going to post announcements, that type of thing. Parents would have to sign in. Of course, if they want to check out this, they'd have to sign in as their student's account because we don't have a Nordonia parent account set up. So right now, that's kind of how that would happen. But definitely get the word out that you're doing it. A lot of parents have heard about it, but they're not quite sure what it is. So educating them as well would be good. And then walk through the basics as a whole class. And I mentioned at the beginning. I mean, take that time and walk the students through, and it will save you time in the end. The teachers that have done that I've seen at the high school have really benefited from that because there's not a lot of, I'm confused, show me how to do this again, because you've walked them through it. They feel confident how to turn in an assignment because you walk them through that process once. And once they feel comfortable, they'll be fine. Okay, and some final notes. Our students are digital natives. Believe it or not, they are. And they will be expected to know how to navigate an online learning component. Most colleges have now an online component to all face-to-face classes. Kent State uses Blackboard. I believe Akron U uses Blackboard. So there's lots of different programs out there, but there is an online component, and students have to feel comfortable doing those components to be successful in college. I had a student at the high school come to me recently. It's actually a graduate. This is her first year at Kent State, And she was very, very overwhelmed with the amount of work she has to submit online. And she said it's just hard because, if it doesn't upload right or the teacher doesn't get it, they take off points and there's no excuses and that type of thing. And I think, using Google Classroom and showing students that, this is how you can upload something, this is how you can share a document, that type of thing, really helps them build that confidence that they can do this when it comes time to have to do it for higher level things. And then there's two big quotes that really resonate with me. The first one, online learning is not about the next big thing, it is about the now big thing. Online learning is really, really catching on. More people are doing online learning than ever right now. And just kind of being in the know is half the battle. So if you know about Google Classroom and you use it even a little bit, you're ahead of the game. So just kind of stay on that track, and and only the students will benefit from that, and you will as well. Teachers need to integrate technology seamlessly instead of viewing it as an add-on, an afterthought, or an event. And that's why I wanted to really present today some ideas where you're actually doing things related to your projects and your assignments and your lessons and, and your curriculum maps, and not so much about, oh, look at this really cool, nifty website that does this cool thing. You're actually using the technology, to influence your teaching. So that's kind of why I went in this direction for this presentation. And so that kind of ends my slides. So what I'm going to do now is go back to the classroom. So what I will now do is let Dawn and Amy kind of talk a little bit about their process of setting up Google Classroom and how it worked for them. So I will go ahead and let you guys take over. Okay, so make sure you unmute your mic.
Okay. We used Google Classroom with an assignment, and the students really liked it. They caught on really quickly. They were able to use the text highlighting tool in it. They submitted it all through Google Classroom, and what was really neat was how many kids worked on it at home. They could work on these projects even from their iPods. Anything that they can get on the internet with, they can work on their Google Classroom and Google Docs and all of that. So they can access anything from any device that gets on the internet, which was really helpful because you can't do that with Word and a lot of other things. They also were able to collaborate with each other and collaborate with me, and it worked really well. And it was really easy. It really was. This is Zapata. I'll unmute so you could talk.
We did the same project, so it was really cool. They had a video that they watched, they had an article that they read, and then they wrote an essay using all, comparing and contrasting the video and the article. It was cool to have them doing the highlighting and those skills that we want them to do on the PARCC test. And I started off by showing them the sample PARCC test, and they were like shocked. We have to do all this? And so we kind of set it up that this is the reason we're doing this, to help you be prepared for this test. I did another thing where it was just an extra activity through Google Classroom where they read a book, and then it was basically a worksheet that they just had to answer questions on, but them just doing it on the computer was exciting for them. I know that my daughter's in 5th grade here at Lee, and her teacher is using it simply as a place to have them go to websites easily. So she sets an assignment, and it's go to this website, play this game, do this thing, which my daughter is excited just to do that. So I kind of think that however you're using it, the kids are going to love it.
Okay, good. I have a question for you ladies. Did you do any type of communication piece with parents or anything to kind of give them, or have you had any parents contact you with different questions or that type of thing?
We put it in, or I put it in my classroom newsletters, and I tweeted it all over the place every day that we were working on it. I did not have any parents ask me more specifics about it, but anytime a parent came into school, I'd be like, oh, they're telling you about that assignment, what they think about it. But the parents really didn't ask much other than what I had shared in the newsletter and on Twitter.
That was the same with me. I shared through the newsletter or through the e-blast with the parents, and I think it's so easy for the kids that they're not asking their parents for help, and so I'm not getting any parent questions on it at all, especially with kids being absent. Like you said, right now we have a lot of kids being out, and it's so easy. Their parents email what can they work on. Everything's online. They know how to do it, and they're submitting it from home. We did a Google form test, and I had so many kids absent. I don't normally let them take tests at home, but I sent them the link if they were ready to take that, and a few students did that at home. So it was nice that they are connecting their school learning and able to do it at home.
Okay, good. And I have one final question, then I'll let you guys off the hook. How do you see yourself using Google Classroom, more and more? And, like, what's your ultimate, kind of goals to use it? Do you want to use it like, for a lot of different things, or you kind of just want to use it for review type of projects? I don't know. I guess kind of what do you kind of envision Google Classroom, helping you in your classroom?
I started off real small with just my intervention group, and they loved it so much that I started to get bigger and bigger. But we were just talking earlier that I see this taking over and not having as much of a need for websites, teacher websites and things like that, because they can access everything they need for that one assignment in one place, not having to look on your website and click on this and then click on this and then click on this. Everything's right there for them. So start small and then keep adding.
I'm excited when we actually have enough technology on a daily basis. I feel like I would be using it a lot more right now if they had the technology on a daily basis, but having to share it with so many other teachers makes it difficult. I think that's the biggest challenge, because a lot of times what you want to do is going to take several days, and if you don't have it logged out for those several days, you're kind of stuck during the day, although they can get to it at night. So as we go one-to-one, I see myself using this for everything. I would love to incorporate it into science and not just the English language arts piece right now. But again, it's the whole having their hands on the technology for it.
Okay, very, very good. All right. I love hearing you guys being excited about it, because then, it makes me like, yay. I mean, I love seeing people use it, and I know, especially Elite, and a lot of you are using it, and a lot of you are putting on Twitter how you're using it, which I think is a great promotional piece. And, and anytime you can give, if students can give positive feedback, we love it, because, that always makes me happy, because it's all about them, and how they're learning using that tool. And I think that's the big thing. Google Classroom is a tool for learning. It is not, the, solution to teaching. Oh, I don't have to teach anymore because it's all in Google Classroom. I think that's a big misconception. I think it's a resource for students to go to when they need help, or when they, you want to house that information. But the teacher is still one of the most important partners in that education process. So that's good. Do you guys have any questions for me, or did anything stick out for you in my presentation that you wanted to talk more about, or anything? Because it was a lot of information, but I wanted to kind of give some very concrete ideas. So do you guys have any questions or anything?
I have one question.
Okay.
Okay. You said that when an assignment is made, it creates a folder.
Mm-hmm.
Is that viewed by all students? So are all submissions going into one folder just for me to see, mm-hmm, or all students can see it?
Yes. So the way it works is that folder for that assignment is going in your drive. And okay, because those students automatically share that with you, you'll see all of their assignments, or all of the students in yours. But okay, they're on the student side, they're only going to see their document. So they'll
Perfect.
see their document in that folder, but they won't see anyone else's. Now the only but to that is if they would share that assignment with someone else. So if they share it with someone else, then that's going to, oh, that assignment will be in that other student's folder.
Okay.
But but if it's just an assignment between you and that student, then you'll see all of them and they'll only see theirs.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or anything? Did you guys get some good ideas from me? I tried to like think really, really like how can we use more and more of this? So that was kind of the goal. Okay. All right. Well, if there are no more questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up. I want to thank Amy and Dawn for joining me, and I hope you join me for more of these Know How Nordonias now that you've hung out. And I will be doing some more Google Hangouts, some more Know How Nordonias on Classroom, as well as Chromebooks. So that's coming in the near future. And then I'm thinking I'm also going to have a couple guests talk about some technology skills that are going to be needed for the park test. So we might talk, have a guest talk about that from InfoHio because they're doing a lot of cool stuff with that. So stay tuned with that. And that is going to end our broadcast. I want to thank all of you guys for joining me, and we will see you next time.